So our first speaker, and I'm very excited about this because I've known Bryan for a while, and I've always found him to be one of the more interesting and the more exciting pro-life leaders that we have. I don't know of any others that have tattoos like he does. And so he's not what we would normally look at and think pro-life, but that's the beauty of it, because we are the body of Christ. And some of you may not even know it. There's atheists for life, feminists for life, LGBTQ for life. We are a makeup of God's people. And so Bryan began his life work in 1993 when he combined his passion for music, and I'm sure you know it wasn't classical, with pro-life into one organization called Rock for Life. He went on to found Stand True Ministries, a Christ-centered pro-life group determined to awaken the youth of this country and share the message of life and the gospel of Christ. He challenges the youth, will you stand for truth? Will you stand for life? Will you be the generation that ends abortion? Bryan is the author of Social Justice Begins in the Womb, and I know you've seen that on the back of some of our t-shirts and hoodies, and we have Bryan to thank for that, which tells us his compelling story from multiple brushes with death due to drug abuse, to discovering the infinite mercy, forgiveness, and love of Jesus Christ, and then answering his call to be a voice to the voiceless. Today, Stand True Ministries is an affiliate of Priests for Life and Gospel of Life Ministries, and Bryan currently serves as the Director of Youth Outreach at Priests for Life. Please welcome Bryan.
Thank you. I guess I can't tell you who to vote for. No, I can't. But I mean, I could tell them about how, like, Jenna Powell has had me and my kids to her house to carve pumpkins while I sit and talk with her parents and her about how pro-life is the most important political issue she's going to be working on as a representative here in Ohio. Or I could tell you how J.D. Vance poses with pictures of my new book because he's so pro-life, or Warren Davidson with the abortion is homicide shirt, but I'm not telling you to vote for them at all. But I'm gonna give a small disclaimer. When I first started speaking, when I first started doing this back in the day, and yes, I do like some classical music, by the way. One of my favorite albums is the San Francisco Philharmonic playing with Metallica. But you learn, and I've taught young people how to speak and how to go out and do speaking engagements over the decades and such. And one of the things you teach is a couple little things that you never do when you're a speaker. One is to look at your watch, because then you look like you're not interested in the crowd. So normally I don't wear a watch when I speak, or much at all, but I wear it for fitness and health stuff now. Because the other thing that they tell you is you never tell a crowd ever that if you're not feeling the best or if something's not perfect, because you want them to think that they're the most important people in the world, which you guys are. But they always say you never tell them, because then some people think, oh, if you come up and you go, sorry, I'm not feeling well, this is gonna be not that good or anything, then the people think, oh, he's not really caring about being here, and then they don't listen to you. But so you never do that, ever. You never give a disclaimer, except today I'm going to, because I think it has to do a little bit with what I want to say today, and that is the fact that I'm here. Some of you may know this, but the fact that I'm here speaking today is a miracle, because when Debbie first asked me, it was before this event, but on July 24th of this year, in the summer, I was grilling, and a couple of my kids were swimming, and I had an artery in the back of my head explode. I had a major stroke. Spent a week in the hospital in Kettering. I know Jeanette came to visit me, and the doctors have told me, the specialist, when I went in to speak to the specialist about possible repair, she showed us pictures. There's nothing left to repair. And the doctor said, you should be dead. I don't know how you're walking. I don't know how you're speaking. And I looked at the doctor and I said, well, do you know the Lord? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, well, there's your answer. My friends like to joke about how I have 9 lives. I'm on number 6 right now. From when I was an infant, if you've heard my testimony, I'm not going through all of that today, but almost dying as an infant with spinal meningitis, to drug activities where someone put a gun to my head and was going to shoot me, to my overdose, to all of the old things. And God keeps saying, no, Bryan, there's something more for you to do. There's something more for you to do. And, and a lot of people might think, well, we've overturned Roe versus Wade, so he's done with you. He's obviously not done with me yet. But as I was thinking about that, I was thinking about today, actually, I got a text. I was sitting over in the tent where the merchandise is, where everybody will stop to get my new book afterwards. I got a text from one of the founders of 40 Days for Life, David B. Wright, texted me, and it was telling me about how good God is. He's in capital letters, God is so good. And I was telling David about, I had texted him earlier, we were talking about, I remember the first time I met David B. Wright was right around the time I was taking a trip to Ireland. David and I were in a coffee shop in Maryland, and he was telling me about how they had done these 40 Days for Life event in Texas and how he wanted to make it national and how they wanted this event to go on. And this was about the same time that I was doing one of my very first international speeches. And when I did this speech in Ireland, and this talk I was thinking about this morning, about this trip to Ireland, I remember when Youth Defense, which is one of the best, most amazing activist pro-life groups in the world in Dublin, Ireland, when Youth Defense asked me to come out, I was so excited to go to Ireland because at that point, Ireland was abortion-free. Abortion was illegal in Ireland. And Youth Defense was working so hard to keep it that way in Ireland. And I remember when I got on the flight, I was thinking about, oh my gosh, this is my first trip to Ireland. One of my closest friends, Sean, the younger guy he started interning with me when he was really young. His family were friends of mine and grew up, and we always wanted to go to Ireland. And I remember going on this trip thinking about all the things I want to see in Ireland and all the things that were important about Ireland and Dublin. It was, it's going to be so much fun. And all I was thinking about on the airplane ride was, my first pint of Guinness or whatever was going to happen in Ireland. But as I got off that airplane, I remember stepping down the steps, and as my foot touched the ground, I remember this overwhelming feeling coming over me that for the first time in my life, I was standing on the ground in a country that was abortion-free. I was standing in a country that was abortion-free. And that was the most amazing feeling in my life. Like the only thing that could even top that would have been finding Jesus for the first time. But I'm standing in a country that was abortion-free. And it changed my whole trip because I thought about that the whole trip, and I told that story in Ireland. And I remember I was there with Joe Scheidler and so many other pro-life leaders, and we were talking afterwards about how we were going to take that feeling that we had. I remember sitting down with Reverend Pat Mahoney too, and Joe Scheidler and so many, I can't remember all of them, but we talked about how that feeling was something that we were going to bring home. That feeling of standing on ground, standing on land in a country that respected the life of every single human being inside the womb was something we were going to bring back to America. That we were going to bring that feeling back here. Is that something that you guys want to feel one day? Is that something that you want to feel one day? When Dobbs versus Jackson was first argued, I was standing again with Reverend Pat Mahoney. I was with Eric Scheidler, Joe Scheidler's son, and we were standing at the Supreme Court, and we had talked about our first time in a country. We talked about that day in Ireland. We talked about that feeling that we had, and we talked about how we knew it was possible for that to happen here. We knew it was possible as we were seeing this case being argued at the Supreme Court, we knew it was possible. Now, there were a lot of people that were telling me, and this goes back as far as, I have some t-shirts over there. This is our newest one that says, "I survived Roe, Roe did not survive me." But one of the original shirts I made that said, "I survived Roe versus Wade, Roe versus Wade will not survive me." I made that over a decade ago. And people told me, "Bryan, it's a little bit too much. We're never going to get rid of Roe. Why do you make that shirt? You have too much confidence." And I'm like, "No, I just have the best God in the world. You know, I have a God that's the creator of this universe." Like, I don't understand that word impossible when we have a faith in God. Like, seriously, how is that word even in our vocabulary, to be honest? The only way impossible should be used is when someone says God's going to fail. Or when someone says that we can't do something through Christ. Because I happen to remember something, you know, the stroke has taken away a lot of my memory, a lot of it. But I do remember something in the Bible about how I can do all things through Christ who strengthens. It doesn't say I can do some things. Father, does it say some? Does it say most? Is that word actually all? All things through Christ who strengthens me. All things. Now, one of the reasons that things changed in Ireland was because people got complacent. People got comfortable. I would stand there in the streets of Dublin at a pro-life stall, talking to people or holding a sign, and people would come by, "Oh, I'm pro-life. Abortion's illegal, we don't need to be here. Abortion's illegal, we don't need to be here." And that was the attitude by so many people. And they ignored the types like Bono of U2 and others who thought, "Oh, we have to have abortion in Ireland. We have to have it." And so many people thought, "No, we're a good Catholic nation. No, we don't need to do anything. We've already won. We've already won. We don't have to do anything." And lo and behold, that laziness, I'll call it laziness, that apathy by so many people who have been blessed by God to ignore what was going on, and abortion was brought back to Ireland. And now, little baby boys and girls die in that country. Well, here we are in America. We're at a turning point in this country. We have just overturned Roe versus Wade. Dobbs v. Jackson. Let's cheer for that one, people. I was there at the Supreme Court. I watched as people screamed and yelled. I got punched in the face, I got kicked, I got hit with umbrellas. Doesn't matter. I mean, I've done so much in mosh pits at punk rock concerts, it really can't hurt me. But after that, there were about 300 or 400 pro-abortion fanatics screaming and yelling and waving hangers and dressed as Handmaid's Tale. And that day, right after that announcement, there were 4 of us left, 4 pro-lifers. 4 people. 400 pro-aborts. And I called up a few people and they're like, "Oh, no one's coming down now, it's already over. It's already over." And if that's the attitude that we are going to have, oh, we passed it. We got Dobbs versus Jackson. We're about to close this abortion mill. So many have closed. If we have that attitude, then we're going to end up like Ireland, and it's going to come right back. The fact is, you should not have a single car in this parking lot. We should not be able to stand in this parking lot. This street should be filled all the way down the road. How many people in this town call themselves believers in Jesus Christ? How many? How many people in this town say they believe that abortion is murder but do not act like it's murder? I've been doing this for 35 years. And I've been to a couple of countries where they don't have abortion. And I've been to one where they brought abortion back. And I'm going to issue this challenge to you now. The fact that you guys are here, you're a remnant of what's out there. You're such a small fraction. we have this beautiful sunny Sunday afternoon in November. And I bet you how many people are on the golf course or at the park or all that. This is the most important thing going on in this area today, especially right before our election. Now, I believe we are going to see a lot of red next Tuesday and a lot less blue. And if we see that, if there is this overwhelming red tide, and if we do take back the Senate, and if the House is taken back, the thing that you cannot do is sit down and get comfortable.
Right.
The thing that means is that's a marching order. That's a marching order. We have not won this battle yet. God has won. But we are not done with this battle yet. And that's why, you know, the stroke, I laugh at it. Yeah, it's changed my life in certain ways. But it's not going to stop me. Because I am not going to go up there and kneel down before Christ until we have baby killing out of this country. It has to leave. Now, again, I apologize. Sometimes I lose train of thought since this stroke happened. And so I've kind of just had a big blank thing right there. So I apologize, but I think you guys get where I'm at with this. This may be the end of 40 Days for Life. And I've said this, I think, several times when I've spoken here at different things. This doesn't mean this is the end of the work we're doing here. This does not mean this is the end of the work that we're doing in Dayton and in this country. And the day that we completely eradicate abortion from our country, our work's actually going to get twice as hard. And we're going to have to continue it. But I beg you, especially I see some young people here. I'm getting old. My official title is the Youth Outreach Director of Priests for Life, but I was sitting with Father Frank a couple months ago, before this, the last time I was with him, telling him, you know, I'm getting kind of old. I don't know if I qualify as a youth director much anymore. So I'm actually, what's going to be announced next week is I have a new position. I'm going to actually be training some people to take over the youth, as I'm going to be heading up a new activism division of Priests for Life. And we are going to have a full-time activism outreach starting to travel around the country that I'll be heading up. So if anybody's excited about activism and would like to get more involved with us, I'd love to talk to you at our table afterwards. But importantly, you have Debbie and Jeanette and the people here that are so dedicated to bringing an end to this abortion mill right here. It's not a clinic, by the way. Please don't ever call it a clinic, because they don't do anything to heal anybody in that building. That's a mill. That's an abortion mill. You have a great group here that needs lots of support and lots of help. But once this thing is over, please don't just go home and think, oh, I can take a break now. Next Tuesday is the most important election, I believe, in our lifetime. Because I believe when we see that red wave, we are going to see more and more states completely outlaw abortion as we continue on this journey to being an abortion-free country and an abortion-free world. Thank you. I did have some t-shirts and stuff. My newest book is called Pro-Life is the New Punk Rock, a history of the youth pro-life movement, talking about my early days in my testimony and starting Rock for Life back in the day. If you want one, they're $10. If you don't have any money, come grab one anyway. I don't care about the money. Seriously, they don't do any good on my shelf. But thank you for coming, and I pray that everybody here, for the next time that Debbie brings an event here, each one of you, your job is to bring 2 more people that you didn't bring today. Thank you, and God bless you.